Welcome to the Kathleen Spracklen podcast. I'm a gal on a mission to assemble a cadre of writers, thinkers, and teachers who are transforming the world one character transformation at a time. And it all starts with one thing, a deep understanding of human motivation. Why do people do what they do, and what forces drive them? This is episode number 3, and I am sharing with you a book that I'm reading and some bib cards and some notes I'm taking on it. This is a very informal podcast where I just share a little bit about how my Zettelkasten grows, what I like to read, and just share a little bit about what's going on in my life. If you would like to subscribe to my mailing list and get notifications on some of the exciting things that are going on in my world, like the formulation of LPC, a Lilliputian publishing co-op, please join my email list at kathleenspracklen.com. Okay, let's just spend a few minutes here. I'm in the middle of reading an incredibly interesting book. It's going to be, from the length of it, a very long read. Character Strengths and Virtues, a Handbook and Classification by Christopher Peterson and Martin E.P. Seligman. As you know, I'm fascinated by human motivations, and character strengths and virtues are very, very closely related to that. One of the things that caught my attention that I talked about yesterday is the little phrase next to the cover page. The work contained herein is that of the Values in Action Institute, and there followed a whole list of names who are part of the directors of the Values in Action Institute, and that got me going on the whole idea, the whole concept of names and who is important in being behind a book. And one of the things that I noticed today when I was doing my reading is that there are 26 pages of references, 2 columns in tiny print, names of people referenced in the work. And not only are many people brought together in creating the content of the book, but the references to other people who've contributed to the field literally through the centuries. And it occurred to me in looking through that list of names that if one were just coming into this field for the first time, you could do a very good job of figuring out who the key players were just by looking at which names are referenced many times in that book. And so I just listed off some of them who had 3 lines of references. Well, the 2 authors, of course, but there were a few other names as well. And so that is just a general idea of where you can go with a book, both to find out who did they consult, but also who else might you want to fill your knowledge in with as you grow. So this is the bib card, and this that we introduced yesterday is the front of the bib card, which shows the nickname I gave the book and the author. And then we turn it the other direction to start making notes. And I began with this thing of I was going to make a list of all of the names that were cited with more times than it took 2 lines in the index to name them. Well, I kind of got a little bit tired of the task long about H.I.J. when one popped out at me. Joan of Arc. Exactly 1 reference. Well, that set me off. I had to go find that reference. It turned out to be on page 201, and here's the beginnings of a main card. I said yesterday that a main card is a card that will go into my Zettelkasten, and so I always start my main cards off with where did it come from, the nickname of the book and the page, and then up top I've got what I learned from that book. And it was really interesting because the book was talking about a section that was entitled Paragons of Courage. And Joan of Arc was the very first person named as a paragon of courage. I liked that because I happen to be very fond of Joan of Arc. Don't know why, but I've always really looked up to her. And one of the quotes from her that I just love, that I tell myself whenever I get a little bit timid about things, I just remind myself of what Joan of Arc said. I'm not afraid. I was born for this. And so that's something that I sometimes tell myself when I'm off trying to do something that you might think you could never do. Like, for example, back in 1978, when I was a first-year graduate student, there was a major ACM conference in San Diego, and I wrote a paper for it. Everyone thought it was a little ridiculous. I have a BA in math, nothing in computer science, and I wrote a paper for an ACM conference? Well, my paper was accepted. I was given a slot to present it. It was listed in the proceedings. Not only that, a magazine that was very popular at the time, Byte Magazine, picked it up and reprinted it. It was reprinted in an anthology at the end of the year of the major interesting papers of that year. And later I heard that it was reprinted in a journal in China in 1978. So don't be afraid. Whatever you think you want to do, go out with your passion and do it. You were born for this. Well, back to a very quick note on my main card. You notice, I noticed right away that there's no numbering on this card. And an interesting thing about a Zettelkasten is every card has to have a number so that you can find the cards from an index. So my next thing after adding those notes was to figure out where in my Zettelkasten this card could go. Well, I have a rather strange numbering system, especially one I was using at that time. And so don't pay too much attention to the number, but I found the slot where it went. And the card that it went right with was from St. Thomas Aquinas when he was talking about fortitude, which of course is very closely related to courage. And Aquinas said that fortitude has to do with a firmness of mind, especially where it's difficult. And that made me wonder a little bit. Courage, real courage, when everything's on the line, when one's life is on the line, is very interesting, because how does one, if you are a materialist, a rational materialist, and the life that you have right now is the only thing that you've got, when it's over, then how can a rational materialist come to grips with mortal danger? Made me rather interested. But I didn't come to a conclusion, but I made that note, and now my bib card is complete because it has the information that I got from the book. It has my reaction to that information, and it ties to the closest card in my Zettelkasten. Now I can file it in this number. This card was just ended in 3E, 3B, so it came right after it. But there's yet one other little thing that I would note, and that is, as a fiction writer, that information on courage wouldn't do us much good at all, because it's far too broad-based. If you're going to really write emotion into fiction, you've got to break it down into the finest grain component. And with that thought, which we may elaborate on tomorrow, we'll end it today. Thank you. See you tomorrow. And bye-bye.